Scottish football. Now, let me get the obvious out of the way here. I'm English. I'm an Englishman, which means that if you're Scottish, you instantly hate me. Humour in Scotland is what keeps them going up there. And when I meet a Scottish bloke or go up to Scotland, I always find it entertaining because there's a certain vibe with them. And when it comes to the way of life, they like to have this almost a self-degrading sense of humour where they can mock themselves, but by God, if you mock them, then they will can let you know. In the last 2 years of me doing these videos, I don't think I've ever really spoke about Scottish football and kind of where I stand by Scottish football really. Because from the outside perspective, so if you're not from Scotland, if you're just someone from England, you will only really pay attention to maybe 3 teams. Celtic, Rangers, and maybe Aberdeen. And that is literally it. And you will only ever really go out of your way to watch a Scottish game if it's the Old Firm, if you can even call it that now, because they get annoyed when you even call it the Old Firm anymore. Or you may watch if there's a derby going on. If it's a Dundee derby, or if it is Hearts v Hibs at Edinburgh derby, you may watch a derby. But that's pretty much it in terms of most people's knowledge of Scottish football. Now, as someone that, of course, this isn't to kind of plug in Mazzala, my company. However, by me doing Mazzala and me looking at Scottish football and doing these prints and getting to know a lot more of the Scottish community, my God, are they passionate. Jesus Christ. Club called Hamilton Academical, okay? You probably can't tell me what their badge looks like. You probably can't tell me what colour kit they play in, and especially not what league they play in or where they are in Scotland. By the way, this is if you're not from Scotland, by the way, right? Just to clarify. And I put a print up. I sold about 40 prints for them. And it was like a goal from like 6 years ago. And I was like, what the I'm selling more for Hamilton Academical than I am for Chelsea. And that kind of hit me with just the passion that comes through Scottish football. Now, before we do get into today's video, if you guys do know me and my channel, I've always been really popular into racing games. I've even done separate videos on my separate channel doing literally just F1 league races. I've got a literal rig here which is worth like over £1,000 and I do not use it anywhere near close enough to warrant that investment. Unlike FIFA, obviously, I find racing games to be a very just casual experience just to play at home. So that's why this video has been sponsored by Asport Legends Unite. Asport Legends is a arcade racing game available on every single platform to PlayStation 5, 4, Xbox, PC, mobile, Nintendo, anywhere. It is available. I'll leave a link at the top of the description to download Asport Legends Unite. It is absolutely free on any platform. The reason why I like it is that it gives me a sort of like throwback to games I used to play back in the mid 2000s. It gives me like a Need for Speed, Underground, Burnout kind of vibe, and I smashed these games for my entire childhood and I absolutely love them. Of course, there's multiplayer and it's also cross-play as well, so anywhere you could go play with your friends at any time. And right now is the best time to try it out because of Black Friday, and of course there's tons of offers available, and right now there's of course the brand new Porsche GT Carrera available right now as well. So if you love racing games, you're into an arcade racer like ones of the 2000s which I used to play, this is absolutely for you. So link is down below top description to Asport Legends Unite and go and check it out. Absolutely free to play, and I hope you guys do enjoy. And thank you to Asport Legends for sponsoring today's video. There was a massive problem, so here's 2 main things, the 2 reasons why I did this video. Number 1, there's a bit of a financial problem with Scottish football. There currently are 2 teams in the last couple of months that have gone into administration. One being, of course, Inverness Caledonian Thistle, which you will probably know, Cadley Thistle, who won the Scottish Cup a couple of years ago, and another side that's in League One called Dumbarton. And the reality is there may be many, many more teams that could go into insolvency administration in the next year or so. Also, I want to give a credit to this video, Copper 90. It's being Scottish. By far one of the best videos I have ever seen on YouTube. Copper 90 is masters of just storytelling, about telling the history and the story about anything to do with football, and this video is incredible, so please go and check this out. I don't work for them, but to get an idea of Scottish football, I am begging you, I don't care that it's an hour, put your time into it, it is worth it. The biggest issue is due to the local community, that most of these lower clubs that are not Celtic or Rangers, they're relying on the local communities to keep them afloat. That's by the local kebab shops or the local butcher or taxi firm that pays for hospitality packages and for sponsorships. Most of them don't have much money anymore because of the cost of living crisis. So if they can't even have the money to really support these clubs, then the clubs don't have the support. And I feel like this is going to happen much more. So that's number one. There's a genuine concern between the Scottish football community that many clubs could be going the wrong way very soon, and I don't think this may stop. And all this kind of really stems down to a downhill from the pandemic, of course, 4 years ago, and they're still feeling the effects from that lockdown now. And next up, number two, in terms of the lack of care on who wins it. Now, it's been Celtic and Rangers that's winning the Championship, mainly Celtic, because Rangers also got just destroyed. Most people just don't really care about a league that only has 2 teams winning it since the dawn of time. Like, if I was just to ask you when was the last time a team other than Celtic or Rangers won the Premiership, give me a good guess. By the way, this is mostly the people that aren't from Scotland. You probably wouldn't know. If you did not have to Google it, you could probably take a good guess if you knew about the European Cup Winners' Cup champions and Sir Alex Ferguson, Aberdeen in 1985. 1985. Yeah, 1985. So we are going back to 39 years. 39 years since a team that's not called Celtic or Rangers have won the Premiership. And even if you take out Aberdeen, the only side that's won it since the last 60 years, other than those 3 clubs, is Dundee United back in 1983. You gotta go all the way back to 1965, which is in Kilmarnock. So again, realistically, you've only had 2 teams win it for the last 39 years, and then 4 teams win it technically for the last 60 years. And that comes to a problem of just a lack of care for the entire sport. And how the hell can you even solve this? The main thing, realistically, is money. And money is a massive thing. And there's such a massive gap between Celtic and Rangers where you just simply cannot compete. And it's fine if Celtic and Rangers were doing so well and they were just far beyond the rest of the league and then they're still doing well in Europe. But the reality is, when it comes to, let's say, the Champions League, it is a complete mockery. Celtic got battered by Borussia Dortmund 7-1 in this campaign. They did beat Bratislava, but when you look at Bratislava, they're not great either, and they are also dead last. Historically, of course, Celtic did indeed win a Champions League. I gotta say that because someone will shout at me if I don't. Celtic did beat RB Leipzig, so that is a big step in the right direction. However, when you look at their general history in the European competitions, last year, bottom of the group, 1 win. Other year, bottom of the group, 0 wins. The year before that in Europa League, they made it through the group stages in 3rd place, and they got knocked out by Bodo Glimt in the Conference League. The last time Celtic made it out of the group stage of the Champions League was back in 2013, and then before that was all the way back in 2008 and 2007, and there was actually runners-up in the UEFA Cup back in 2003. Rangers is a different story. They at least made it to a final of a European competition in the Europa League not too long ago, only 2 years ago. It's usually the same story in the Champions League. 23, they were bottom of the group, lost every single game. In the Europa League, they got a win against your Real Betis. They did well, and then knocked out by Benfica. No real shame in that. Of course, made it all the way in the final back in 22, which is really good, and of course, unfortunately lost the penalties to Frankfurt, but that really should have been a big win for them. I think one of the lowest moments by Rangers was back in 17-18 when they actually got knocked out of the Europa League qualifying round 1, which they got knocked out by a Luxembourg team, Progress Niederkorn. That's a low moment, I think, for Rangers history. And I remember seeing this interview by a manager only last year. His name was Derek Adams, and I believe he was the manager of Ross County. And in a press conference, it came out as saying that the Morecambe are 100 times better than a side in the current Scottish Premiership, and just calling it rubbish.
In the game, but that takes nothing away from the fact that the game was really poor. The standard is shocking, really. It's one of the worst games I've ever seen. It's just, I've been back here and I see the standard and I think, wow, any chance? If I'm a spectator and watching that today, I'm thinking, is this what Scottish football's about? It needs to get up its game, and we were better than Dundee.
You've been down in England for a number of years now, but you've obviously come back in the last couple of weeks, and you sound genuinely surprised at the standard here.
The standard's rubbish, and it really is. You know, the quality for a supporter to go and watch the games, to see passing movements, to see chances created, the amount of times the ball's given away, the amount of times that nobody's under pressure, that both teams, any team that I've seen, it's got to be a lot better. If this is the best product in this division, it has to be 100 times better than it is. And if I'm a paying customer at this moment in time, I'm not coming back to watch that, I tell you that. And, you know, I've left a team down in League 2 that's miles better than this team. Miles. And that's saying something. You know, we had the bottom budget in League 2 and we're 100 times better than this. 100 times.
And there's the idea that is the Scottish Premiership much more competitive, or is it a shocking standard? The reason why people are saying this is because in terms of the third place teams, the points have gone lower and lower and lower every single year. And is this due to quality or by the fact that everyone's now at the same level? But does that mean that they're all just bad? So it's a case of, even if the league has been dominated by two teams, at least they can support the coefficiency for the nation, at least in European competitions. Another thing is that because everyone talks about Celtic and Rangers, however, I do need to say this. Like, there's the Scottish League Cup happening next month, right? So there's a League Cup that happens in December, and then there's the actual Scottish Cup, which happens in May. The final is next month. I don't need to tell you who's in the final because you already know. It's Rangers v Celtic again, and it's usually always Rangers v Celtic in the final, or sometimes there's an Aberdeen. It's been kind of boring. In the mid-2010s, you had a ton of teams winning the Scottish Cup, where you had Dundee United winning it, Hearts, St Johnstone, Inverness Caledonian Thistle, Hibernian. In a span of like 6 years, you had a ton of different clubs. Then you had St Johnstone again back in 2021, but then since then it's just been Celtic. Celtic has won the Scottish Cup 6 times out of the last 8 years. Other one being Rangers, and unfortunately the Scottish League Cup ain't much better. Guess what? Out of the last 8 Scottish League Cups, who's won 6 of them? Celtic, the other one being Rangers. And even when it comes to the Old Firm, which everyone can understand and acknowledge is, you know, the most fierce rivalry probably in the entirety of Britain, you may say. You know, like in terms of rivalry, in terms of the history of it, is the main rivalry. There's a weird party that thinks that because it seems to happen all the time, because there's 3 times in the main league phase, and then they also play each other as well in the second phase as well for the championship round. So then when it comes to the league cups as well, that they will eventually play each other, you probably have the Old Firm 6 times a year, 5-6 times a year, which it just kind of loses its meaning when like there's so many games. Like sometimes less is more. But when you look away from Rangers and Celtic, there is so many clubs there that have got such passionate fan bases. And it does impress me a lot in terms of, because it kind of comes across as a bit bleak from the outside perspective, because like, you know, you'll never really make it to the top 2. So realistically, you're just going for maybe a European spot, and that is probably just enough, which I guess can be similar to how people see it in Premier League as well. You're probably never going to win a league, but being a European competition is like a massive dream. So when a club like a Kilmarnock make it into the European spot, so Hibernian, usually it's Hearts as well, like it means a lot for these clubs, and the money you get for being in these European competitions goes a long way. I would advise you to watch like a Scottish League game when it comes to like an actual, like a bit of a derby. Go watch like Dunfermline versus Falkirk, for example. It's a proper good game. Like, it's a proper top derby. And when I saw it also on YouTube from the atmosphere to the fans, it's absolutely like buzzing. Like, it's really good. There is also one like concern as well, is that in the Scottish leagues, only 3.2% of players under 21 is actually playing in the Premier League in Scotland, like the Premiership, like, which is a bit of a concern. Like, you would think that, of course, they should be kind of blending in the young local talents and getting them into the higher levels, at least, of the Scottish game, but they're not really. Like, 3.2% is quite low, considering when it comes to the typical quality of the league. You would expect there to be a bit more of a boost. For example, when you look at, let's say, the Norwegian league, it's 11.4% of players under 21 playing in a league. The Belgium league, 11.8%, getting the youth of the academies just straight into the main top flight. And that's not really working. Like, even in the Premier League, there's more young English players under 21 playing in the Premier League than there are Scottish players playing in the Premiership. Like, for me, that doesn't sound right. And maybe one reason why is that Scottish clubs are relying more on England than ever. They're loaning out more players than ever before. So tell me down below your thoughts on Scottish football, and can you see it improve in the future? What may the future be? Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. See ya.